2019 will be coming to an end in just a few short days, but it's not only the year that's coming to a close, but also the decade. Over the course of the last 10 years, Apple released products ranging from the original iPad to the Apple Watch to the ill-fated butterfly keyboards on the MacBook Pro. This prompted us to ask you what your favorite Apple products were over the last 10 years. And so here's a list of those 10 products that were your favorites over the last decade. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications whenever we share a video. Starting us off is the original iPad, which was released in 2010 and was one of the more overwhelming responses that we received, and for good reason. The iPad was and still is a game changer. Then Apple CEO Steve Jobs unveiled the iPad in January 2010, and it launched just a few months later in April, marking Apple's first 9.7-inch tablet-sized device that was revolutionary at the time because it was essentially a bigger iPhone with a touchscreen. And at that time, carrying a super fast A4 chip and a display perfect for reading, gaming, working, and more. Since then, Apple has continued to expand the iPad lineup, and now we have a plethora of iPads to choose from, ranging from the 7.9-inch iPad mini to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I actually still have the original iPad that my parents got me as a Christmas gift for 2010, and it's still sitting right over here. But unfortunately, it's used as a prop because it no longer turns on. But I do remember thinking that it was so cool to carry around what essentially was just a bigger iPhone at the time, but a lot more powerful and could be used for gaming and reading. But nowadays, it's used for so much more than that. Next on the list is the MacBook Pro, and although it's been around since 2006, some of the better and more innovative iterations came over the last decade. In 2012, Apple released the first ever MacBook Pro with a super clear, high-resolution Retina display, a feature that has since expanded to the entire Mac lineup. And it also featured a unibody design that was thinner and lighter than the previous models. Then in 2016, Apple tried to innovate even more with an even thinner and lighter design, that infamous butterfly keyboard that we mentioned earlier, and a secondary display called the Touch Bar that sits above the keyboard and replaces the function keys. And it also had an even better display. While I do think that Apple did make an enjoyable keyboard to type on, I really liked it. And the keyboard was really important to slim down into this new design so that the rest of the machine could be slimmed down even further. It ended up being a major problem. The keyboard failed so bad that it led to Apple making an entire replacement program for all the affected butterfly keyboards. Then if we fast forward to 2019, present day, we have a new MacBook Pro that was just released that essentially fixes all of the issues that people have been complaining about since 2016. The new 16-inch MacBook Pro was many people's top pick given its excellent display, long battery life, and a return to a more functional keyboard. The only negative still, in my opinion, is that it lacks a lot of the ports that we know and love, but at this point, I'm pretty used to just using dongles when needed. Our next product is the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, which was released back in 2014. The iPhone 6 and 6 Plus were iconic for a number of different reasons, but one of the main reasons was that it's the complete redesign from the 5S, with a new 4.7-inch display and the introduction of a second model, a larger 5.5-inch display. Apple stuck with these sizes for the iPhone 6, 6S, 6S Plus, 7, 7 Plus, 8, and 8 Plus, giving us about 4 years with the same general design. The iPhones in this family all featured a similar look with large bezels and Touch ID home buttons, though each one added new features ranging from camera upgrades to a new 3D touch feature. Even though a lot of people still preferred the smaller devices that we used back in 2014, and even some are still clamoring for a follow-up to the 2016 iPhone SE, the smartphone industry was still trending towards larger phones, which is why Apple went with this decision. Also in 2014, Apple introduced Apple Pay, a contactless payment service that allows Apple devices to be used to make payments without a physical credit card present. Apple Pay was slow to catch on when it was first released, but as of 2019, it is the most popular payment platform in the United States. Now, personally, where I live, there are still some stores and gas stations that I visit frequently that do not accept Apple Pay. And while it's definitely more available in larger cities when I travel, I would have hoped that leaving the wallet at home would have been a reality 5 years later. But unfortunately, we're not quite there yet, but I will take what I can get. In 2015, Apple released a new MacBook. It was simply called MacBook. The new MacBook was thinner than the MacBook Air, featured only one USB-C port and a 3.5mm headphone jack. That was it. It also had a really nice 12-inch Retina display, and the entire body was only 2 pounds. The MacBook was actually the first machine with Apple's Butterfly keyboard, and it offered a 10-hour battery, which was pretty impressive for 2015. Now, the 12-inch MacBook used a less powerful Core M processor, and it had a higher price tag starting at $1,300, but it was notable because of just how thin and light that it was. We all thought that the end of the MacBook Air was near, with the new MacBook being introduced with a much more modern and portable design, but Apple ended up refreshing the MacBook Air in 2018 and then just discontinuing the MacBook in 2019. One of my personal favorite products over the last 10 years, and another game changer in my opinion, is the Apple Watch. In 2015, Apple announced its first wrist-worn device, and it remains to this day one of, if not the best smartwatch option out on the market. At launch, the Apple Watch was slow, it really didn't have a long battery life, and it wasn't the most useful device Apple has ever released, but it did track your heart rate, and since its debut, Apple has added a ton of new features that have actually made this device indispensable. The newer Apple Watches now come with the ability to take EKGs, you can alert family and paramedics if you have a major fall, and even send alerts when it detects abnormal heart rates, which have actually led to some pretty crazy stories that Apple has highlighted for us about the Apple Watch saving people's lives. The Apple TV, another product that's been around for a long time, actually became even better during this decade when Apple introduced a major update in 2015 with the 4th generation Apple TV. The 1080p 4th generation Apple TV was the first with a dedicated app store and deep Siri integration, allowing users to download apps and games and ask Siri to find specific content. The new Apple TV ran tvOS with an iOS-style interface that was pretty simple to navigate. Apple has since updated the 4th generation Apple TV with a new 5th generation 4K model and has overhauled the interface with the Apple TV app and now features Apple's new streaming service, Apple TV Plus, and new channels. Now, next up on our list is probably the best and more iconic product that Apple released during this decade, and it's probably one of the better things that Apple has released in a long time, and that's the original AirPods. Introduced in 2016, AirPods were some of the first true wireless headphones on the market, marking Apple's most significant push towards the elimination of wired headphones. AirPods feature an Apple design chip that lets users connect and swap between Apple devices. They offered impressive battery life, and the little included case kept them safe, and when you were not using it, it added more battery to your AirPods. AirPods actually blew up, becoming not only one of Apple's best-selling products, as I mentioned before, but the true wireless headphones genre truly started to blow up after Apple's AirPods, with every company that you can possibly think of coming up with their own interpretation and trying to cash in on this new product. AirPods' popularity hasn't even died down since 2016, and in 2019, Apple debuted both the AirPods 2 with the wireless charging case and the AirPods Pro. Both models improve upon the original AirPods with new features, better sound quality, and better connectivity, with the AirPods Pro also offering active noise cancellation. The next product on the list that we should definitely talk about for this decade is the 2017 iPhone X. The iPhone X marks the second major redesign of the decade, and the iPhone X eliminated the Touch ID home button that was used in every iPhone since the iPhone 5S and replaced it with Face ID, Apple's secure 3D facial recognition platform. At that time, Face ID technology was cutting edge, and it's still not really a feature that most Android manufacturers have been able to easily replicate. Even though I personally have pushed against Face ID when it was first announced, and was definitely missing me some Touch ID, I've grown to love Face ID over the last couple of years. Now, I certainly wouldn't be against an in-display Touch ID / Face ID combo if Apple really wanted to go that route, but I'm pretty content with Face ID as a whole. Apple sold the iPhone X alongside the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus with Touch ID when it launched back in 2017, but in 2018 and 2019, Apple did away with the home button altogether on iPhones and launched a series of all-screen iPhones that include the iPhone XR, XS, XS Max, 11, 11 Pro, and the 11 Pro Max. So that's where we are with iPhones right now, and obviously it was released back in 2007, but during this decade, it's clearly gotten a whole lot better and a whole lot more different than what we're used to. Finally, our last major product that you all loved over the last 10 years is the 2018 iPad Pro. Apple brought the Face ID and full screen design that we just talked about with the iPhone 10 and implemented it into two larger 11 and 12.9 inch tablets. The latest iPad Pro models are Apple's most advanced, with thin bezels all around and no home button, giving us much more display to work with for watching movies, sketching, video editing even, reading, working, and more. Unlike the original iPad that we talked about at the beginning of this video, the iPad Pro is much more than just a larger version of your iPhone. For some people, it can absolutely replace your computer. These iPad Pro models are as powerful as many of Apple's desktop machines, with their A12X Bionic chips complete with neural engine for advanced machine learning capabilities. They're also Apple's first non-Mac device to feature USB-C, and they work with the newly designed Apple Pencil 2, an updated Apple Pencil stylus that Apple designed just for these iPads specifically. So that's it. That wraps up our list of the 10 best Apple products picked by you, our wonderful Mac Rumors viewers and readers. So go ahead and let me know your thoughts on this list. Did we leave something out, or do you have another product that you want to add? Go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys all have a happy new year.